very, very important in this matchup.
Yeah, very important. And it looks like he might even have an Arbor Elf, which, again, mana ramp is very important in this particular matchup.
Especially the Junk Reanimator deck is often slow getting out of the gates. Doesn't have a ton of acceleration, although we see an Avacyn's Pilgrim out of Harry, and getting out in front of it in terms of mana and threats on the board is a pretty good game plan.
Yeah. So Huey here, he has not that many 3-drops in his deck. He has Varal's Discar Strike, but he does have Stranglegeist, which we're going to see both that and Arbor Elf come in. And, you know, you might be asking, why is he attacking with his Arbor Elf? Well, the fact is, the mana creatures are much more important in Harry's deck than they are in William's deck. Yep. So William's pretty confident that Harry won't be blocking there.
If he doesn't block, it's a free point of damage, and if he does block, William's actually fine with that as well.
He's totally fine with that. Again, Harry really relies on those mana creatures. So Sin Collector comes down for Harry and is able to get a Bonfire Dam, one of the few cards in William's deck that can actually get targeted by Sin Collector.
And you can see why William was willing to trade up his mana elf there. He had Flinthoof Boar for this turn, and then two turns to draw a land for the Huntmaster of the Fells in his hand as well. So.
Yeah, and so Stranglegeist is going to come down again, not afraid to trade with Sin Collector because of Undying, and now we're probably going to see a Huntmaster of the Fells post-combat. Huntmaster gives Huey 4 points of damage, 4 points worth of attackers on the board, as well as a way to actually deal with that Avacyn Pilgrim if he chooses to just pass the turn back and let it flip.
Huntmaster's not the fastest threat in the world, but we've seen in some other matches, it's actually not, the flipping back and forth is actually a reasonable thing that happens against Junk Reanimator. For all the big creatures that the Reanimator deck can generate, a lot of it's hubbed together by smaller creatures like Avacyn's Pilgrim generating mana, and so flipping back and forth is actually a real thing.
And the fact that Huey's deck has a lot of haste creatures like Thundermaw, Falcon Raptor Scry, and Flinthoof Boar, which we know he has in his hand, he can actually waste a turn just flipping the Huntmaster of the Fells, because a flip of the Huntmaster of the Fells, if he kills the Avacyn Pilgrim, that's a turn that he can keep Harry off at the Thragtusk, which is actually pretty big in this matchup. So Harry draws his card. We got a Wolf token come into play. William obviously wants to let the Reduke player token represent the Wolf. Very good friend, teammates at the SCG team event in New Jersey. So looks like Harry's going to play. He's got another land here. It looks like he does have one of the Sever the Bloodlines that's in his main deck. Sever the Bloodline could take out Huntmaster of the Fells there. Could also take Stranglegeist, make sure it's gone for good. Although Huntmaster's probably the biggest threat. Again, I don't think Harry wants to lose his Avacyn Pilgrim here. He really needs to get to 5 mana.
Although, you know, Harry is right now playing a pretty honest game. He hasn't really done anything to grease the wheels. There's been no mulching, no Grizzly salvaging, and so at this point he's just kind of casting cards. He just plays a Restoration Angel, main phase, sees if there's anything going on. Restoration Angel, a very, very effective blocker right now, but it does leave the door open to Huntmaster of the Fells getting flipped this turn, taking out the Avacyn's Pilgrim, and with Harry obviously light on mana, or potentially light on mana here, that sequence could be very powerful. Yeah,
and it almost assures that the Huntmaster is going to flip now because, you know, why would Huey possibly cast one of the Flinthoof Boars in his hand? There's a Restoration Agent in play, so it almost assures that William will actually flip the Huntmaster, and next turn William can play both the Flinthoof Boars. Oh wow, so Harry does have another Restoration Angel to save the Avacyn Pilgrim that turn. Now it'll be interesting to see whether or not William uses the Abrupt Decay on the Avacyn Pilgrim, knowing that Harry's likely going to miss a land drop this turn.
Yeah.
Or will he just try to flip it? I don't think he has time to flip. I think he might want to just Abrupt Decay the Avacyn Pilgrim.
Yeah, it's not going to get much better than this.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to Abrupt Decay the Avacyn Pilgrim, knowing that Harry missed the land drop for the turn. Now he can cast 2 spells on his turn. He can cast both Flinthoof Boars to reflip the Huntmaster of the Fells and get a little bit more of board presence.
It's going to take him a little bit of time until he finds, you know, potentially Keswick Wolf Run or some removal spells to deal with those Restoration Angels. He can't attack for a while here, so Jensen can kind of take his time, develop his board a little bit, maybe try to set up a big Bonfire of the Damned, and with, you know, Harry choked on mana, Jensen has a little bit of time to set this all up.
And it looks like William drew a Falcon Raptor Scry, which is a great draw here. It'll allow him to attack in the air, and so Harry can try to block with one of his Restoration Angels, but that will just William can just sacrifice Strangler Geist to save his Falcon Raptor Aristocrat.
Yeah, so Aristocrat, one of the best draws, possibly the best draw that Jensen has there.
Yeah, Thundermaw Hellcat would have been good too, but he only has 4 mana, and even that will just get double blocked by both Restoration Angels the following turn.
Yeah.
So yeah, Falcon Aristocrat, one of the better cards you can draw. And next turn, William can still cast both Glint of Cores, reflip that Huntmaster Fells, and basically get 3 creatures onto the board in one turn.
Yep.
It looks like Harry still doesn't have a 4th land. He did draw Grizzly Savage though, which will allow him to dig for an Unburial Rights as well as get that 4th land in play. So not the best Grizzly Savage, but it will get him the 4th land that he needs. One step closer to getting a Thragtusk into play.
Yep.
But again, is it a little too late? He's hitting 3 lands here, so 2 lands will be going to the graveyard. He's only getting 1. If there's not a 5th land on top of his deck, he might just be under too much pressure from that Falcon Raptor.
So he's actually just cast 2 spells there himself too, which is...
So now Huey can just pass back and allow it to flip to kill off that Pilgrim again and do another 2 damage to Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, I question adding the other Avacyn's Pilgrim to the board there.
Especially because you have to take 2 in order to do it.
Yeah.
So you drop yourself down to 5 now. Yeah, so if I'm Huey, I probably just attack with the... Well, let's see here. How much can he actually attack for? Harry only has 4 creatures. Huey can cast... Oh, he would only be able to give 1 of his Splinter Force haste. So, let's see what he does here.
I still think he's better off just sending with the Aristocrat.
And just flipping.
Flipping back. He has access to the same play next turn.
Yeah,
so.
no reason to make anything else, make any other play. So, looks like, yeah, we're going to get an attack with the Aristocrat. Restoration Angel jumps in front of it, and Strangler Geist gets sacked to save to give Falcon Wrath indestructibility. And now Huntmaster will flip again, targeting Avacyn Pilgrim, dropping Harry to 3. So Harry does have a way to deal. Yeah, he doesn't draw a 5th land, so Thragtusk won't be able to come into play. He has a Sever the Bloodline now, which he can cast to deal with the Falcon Raptor Aristocrat. Unfortunately, there's just too many creatures in play, and with Harry at 3, nothing left to do but scoop there.
Yeah, and you can, that's one of the weaknesses of Junk Reanimator is when it doesn't have enough, Grizzly Salvages and Mulches to grease the wheels. It has to play just a pretty honest game with regular creatures, and it's just less efficient of doing that than various other decks in the format.
Yeah, it's a very mana-hungry deck. It has generally 8 mana accelerants between Avacyn Pilgrim and then either Arbor Elf or Farseek. So it has a lot of ways to get mana, even though it only has 23 lands. But it's a very mana-hungry deck, and you can see there, it really starts rolling when you get to 5. And unfortunately, Harry only drew 3 lands, and William was able to control the Avacyn Pilgrims early on with Hunt for Esseter Fells as well as Abrupt Decay. So, controlling that mana early on is really, really important in keeping the Reanimator deck in check.
Yep. So moving on to the sideboard here, Harry's got a couple of options at his disposal here. He can bring in another copy of Sever the Bloodline, which I'm assuming he's going to want, another Thragtusk, another Acidic Slime. Acidic Slime, usually good in the 3-color green mirrors because a lot of it's about mana. Jensen's deck's a little bit on the faster side, so I'm not sure if he wants to move the 4th one into the deck. There's another tool he has access to. He has another Angel of Serenity, which I assume he'll want here. 2 copies of Abrupt Decay. There's some threats in Jensen's deck that tags, but not the quality ones. And 3 copies of Deathrite Shaman. So I think the Deathrites, the Angel, the Thragtusk, and the Sever are all reasonable cards to be bringing in.
Yeah, and for Huey's deck, he's got, 2 copies of Rurik Thar, which probably aren't good at coming in this matchup. 3 copies of Domri Rad, which again, I don't really love in this matchup. He does have 1 Garruk Relentless and 3 Olivia, which again, I think are very good in this matchup. Garruk Relentless can deal with those mana creatures, as we said. Olivia Voldaren, a card that Reanimator just has difficulty dealing with sometimes. Angel Serenity is really the one card that can deal with it, but he does have Sever the Bloodlines, which can deal with it as well, but not a lot of ways to deal with an Olivia Voldaren, which can just totally control the game. He has 2 copies of Thragtusk, which probably aren't coming in. 1 Abrupt Decay, 1 Zealous Conscripts, which Zealous Conscript I can see coming in because stealing Thragtusk and then sacrificing them while you're aside is pretty huge effect because you get the 3/3 Beast. 2 copies of Rolling Timber. This is interesting. I think this card probably is going to be coming in, especially if Huey's on the draw, simply because it can deal with the mana accelerants. And as we saw, just being able to deal with those early creatures can keep Harry off of the mana he needs in order for his deck to really function. And just like a doing that along with an aristocrat can just lock the game up for Huey sometimes.
Yeah, it depends how much he wants to be attacking the mana creatures, like you said. Temblor is also obviously not good against all of Harry's threats, and there's plenty of spots where it's not going to be productive. But like you said, a fast Temblor cutting off Harry's mana creatures could be very powerful.
Yeah, and I think if I'm on the draw, I think it's reasonable to bring those cards in because, again, you really want to just be able to get a Falcon Raptor into play before Harry can get a Thragtusk into play.
Yep, and you know the card to me the biggest swing card in the matchup from Jensen's perspective is Olivia by far. If you've ever seen a Junk Reanimator deck kind of get its stuff online, start doing some of its powerful things, and still lose the game, it almost certainly involves Olivia. The card's just, it's outside of Abrupt Decay range. There's not a lot of great answers to it besides Angel Serenity. And it by itself and a lot of mana can actually shut out a lot of what the Junk Reanimator deck is trying to do.
Yeah. And I think Huey still has to just lean on the core of his deck, which is Aristocrat and Hellkite. Those cards are very good in this matchup. If I can go turn 3 Rolling Temblor, turn 4 Aristocrat, turn 5 Thundermaw, there's really not much Harry's deck can do because he's not going to be ahead in mana of me, and it doesn't matter. Even if you play a Thragtusk, my Hellkite will trump you, especially if I already have an Aristocrat in play. So I still think I think I would board in the Temblor in this matchup, even though he has cards like Arbor.
What do you feel? How do you feel about cutting Flinthoof Boar on the draw or Strangleroot Ghost?
Yeah, I don't love Flinthoof Boar in this matchup. I'd probably board those out.
Certainly
if I'm on the draw, yeah. If I'm on the play, I think it changes. But if I'm on the draw, I don't really like this card that much.
It looks like Harry's taking a mulligan here, and Jensen kept 7.
And you know, again, Harry's deck is one of those decks that can actually mulligan pretty well. Not many cards it needs to function. A Grizzly Savage, a Timely Mulch can get you right back into it. Same thing with Grizzly Savage. So not the worst thing for Harry, but again, the mana acceleration is really going to be important here. He really needs a quick hand, something that can generate a lot of mana early on and get him to start churning out those Thragtusk and Restoration Beetles.
Yeah, and your comment on the mulligan, in case you weren't viewing earlier, we saw Harry beat Pro Tour champion David Sharpman off a mulligan to 4. So this deck is very capable of mulliganing into winning hands.
Yeah, sometimes just a Grizzly Savage enough can get you an Angel Serenity to play. Yeah. So Harry, see if he can go down to 6, if he's going to be happy with those 6 cards. Huey did like his opening 7, so he will be keeping them on the draw.
And Harry slowly peels back 6.
And it doesn't look too happy with them, but are they good enough? Are 5 cards better? Yep, no. Wow, so Harry's going down to 5 cards here. And again, we've seen him go down to 4.
Was that 6 lands?
I believe it was 6 lands, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have seen him go down to 4 before and still be able to pull it out. But that was against a much more controlling deck, against a deck like Huey, where he's a little bit more aggressive than Sharkman's list. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not Harry can pull off a 5-card hand that's good enough to stabilize.
Yeah, Harry had all the time in the world to get his shop set up against Sharkman. Jensen, if he's got a reasonable draw, is probably going to give him a lot less space to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, so. Like 3 lands, Grizzly Savage, Umberarites is still a pretty good 5-card hand. So I think Harry's still in a reasonable shape as long as he can just get a little lucky here. So let's see, is he going to be happy with these 5? And leaning back a little bit. Yep, looks like he's okay with them. So what are we going to lead with here? And looks like it's a Woodland Cemetery. So one of those awkward starts where he doesn't have a land. It looks like he does have an Avacyn Pilgrim, but he doesn't have a forest or a pain land to actually cast on turn 1. So
looks like he's got a Sunpetal Grove, a Thragtusk.
There might be a Garruk Relentless in his hand. It looks like it's a flip card or a checklist card, but I can't make it out exactly. So, oh, there's an Arbor Elf. And interesting, I thought he had an Avacyn Pilgrim. Maybe I was wrong.
I think he certainly would have led with it because he actually can't use the
Arbor Elf isn't going to be very useful right now. But so let's see. And he draws. Looks like, and there is a Thragtusk in his hand. Oh, and there's a Gavany Township. So he's able to hit his mana drops at least for the first few turns. So that's step 1. Thragtusk, again, one of those cards that can get you out of mulligans sometimes if you draw enough of them.
Yep. Certainly against Jensen's deck, it's worth multiple cards.
So interesting here. It looks like Harry did have the Avacyn Pilgrim on. He could have cast it on turn 2, but he chose not to. Maybe because he was afraid it would just die.
Yeah, if he wants to lead with a mana creature that's likely to survive, it makes sense for him to do that.
But here he's just going to get bonfired for 1 anyway. So I think you have to do it the other way, because
if Harry actually has nothing to ramp into in his hand, I think it makes a lot more sense to lead with the mana creature you don't care about dying.
I only like that play if you don't play the Avacyn Pilgrim next turn.
Oh, sure. Okay.
If you're gonna play both of those creatures, you might have just lead with the Pilgrim first, because you could just draw a mulch or something, and then draw another. Maybe you have 2 spells you can cast on 1 turn. But yeah, now Harry has no mana in play, and there's just 3 Flint of Quarries charging over the table here. Yep, and Harry just packs it in. A little unlucky there. Harry had to mulligan to 5, stalled on land, and then Bonfire just dealt with both of his mana creatures early on.
So Jensen on the back of a Bonfire, sweeping away Harry's mana creatures on the mulligan to 5, and a bunch of Flint Hoof Boars, wins 2-0 to advance to 6-0.